What's going on, everybody? Retro Wrench is back for another video. And today we're providing, as requested, trailer hitch, the wire kit install, and this is Mopar, so it's a OEM factory harness. It's not universal one, so this is going to be the proper way to do it for Mopar standards to go along with our Mopar trailer hitch, which did phenomenal, and a lot of people found that very helpful. So if you're in the market of trying to install this, definitely check down in below. We have this exact link so you could get it yourself, and without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so the first step you're going to want to do, of course, when you're working with electrical wiring and stuff like that, is disconnect the power supply. So just take the positive side off the battery. In this case, it's a 10mm, so just disconnect that. And we'll just set that aside so it's not touching anything. Like that. Now, no battery supply. So now let's go to the back and start disconnecting. So the second step we're going to want to do is pretty much remove all this interior trim. So we'll start with this thing over here. Thing just comes right out. We'll set it aside, and then we're going to want to take this little, it's like a brush guard, and of course the interior, we'll have to get the tire, the jacks, and everything out. So I'll show you guys how to do that right now, but get this out of the way. So what we're going to do is, to get this thing out of the way, we just kind of pop up on these little black cover pieces like that, and then there is a T10 bolt or a little screw. We'll just move this whole thing, and that's pretty much what's holding this in. This one over here, and then we'll just have to pop it. There's usually 2 clips on each side, so you just got to take either a screwdriver, or we'll do it the right way with a panel popper and just pop it out. Now that we got those T10s out of the way, we're just going to take our trim tool, kind of just feel it out. So I get it in there, and just kind of pop. That's 1. Like I said, there's 2 on each side, so a total of 4 on this thing. Got to be careful, plastic breaks, and I've broken too much plastic in my life. But yeah, just do that. This thing just pops up. Those are the 2 clips on that side, the 2 on this, so 4 total. They just sit in that little groove. We'll get this to the side. We'll get to the next step. So that's out of the way. Now we got to get this whole trunk pretty much cover out. There's a Phillips head screw there, and then on this side, and then this comes out. But to make it easier, let's take out this stuff so it doesn't make it as heavy. So we'll just do that. Just kind of unloosen this thing. The 2 Phillips screws are out. They're very tiny. Now we just got to push these little clips out, and then this whole little insert will come out. I'm going to turn it sideways. I'm sure you're going to find a bunch of stuff that you've been missing for a long time. I see some kind of sanitizer back there. But
my nasals.
So we're gonna take off this upper panel here, which is actually held in by 1 little screw and then a bunch of clips. So you're gonna take off this SRS airbag little plate, and then there's 1 of those T10 screws. I'll just take that off. And of course, when you're messing with airbags, you want to make sure there's no power, so definitely don't skip that first step we did of disconnecting the battery power, because you don't need an airbag in your face, because it's not fun. I've experienced it. But now we're just going to go around the whole trim and just pop it out. So the only other bolt that's holding this lower half in is under this little clip, which was like this little brush guard on the edge of the trunk, but that's a T10 as well. So we'll take that out. We'll set that aside. They're little screws, so try not to lose them, and you have to reuse them, of course. So now we're just going to start popping all the panels off. Once again, there's clips, and then of course you got some electrical connectors, because you got DC voltage over here, and then you got a light over here. So you just got to be careful not to pull those wires too taut, otherwise you could put some strain on them and potentially break the wires, and then that outlet or that light will never work again unless you tap into it. But let's start pulling these apart. And plastic actually is pretty sharp, so just be careful. And you don't have to take this all the way off. You just want to set it aside like we did with that piece there. Of course, you have the seat belt in it, so you just got to be careful and just kind of extend the seat belt, make sure it doesn't lock. So in order to get this bottom piece off of the rear, you got to take this little trim piece down here, which is just, once again, just kind of popping it open like that. They're all held in by little clips, so just pop that. We'll set that aside, and of course you're going to have to feed wire through it, so you might as well keep it off for now. Now we have access down here. I can take this out of the way, and this whole piece is ready to come out. So here's that little DC connector that I was talking about. They just want to be careful not to put tension on those wires. So we'll get this out of the way, and then the light over there. So the next step is, now we got all the plastic out of the way, we're going to start hooking up the wire harness. This long wire is going to be fed to the front of the car through the, or under like the steering column and through the firewall. So we'll just set that aside right now. Now we're going to make our way to this little connector here, which Mopar, if you do the OEM, it comes with a nice little computer or like a little switch. So we'll plug that in there and we'll tape it onto there because it's got some double-sided tape. We got a ground, which will ground on this bolt right here, and then this will have to feed into that connector. We'll get to that step later. But we're going to take a circle saw and drill through the frame right here, in between those two circles. It's 41 millimeter, and we'll just feed this grommet through. We'll feed this whole wire connector through that, which will allow us to get this wire harness up under to this tail light. We'll hook that up. And of course it will allow us to hook up our towing package, which will come out right through here, right through there. We have our connector over here, which we'll get to in a little bit. Then of course we'll be able to hook this side up under the car to the passenger side. So right now what we're going to do first is take the circle saw and drill through this frame right here. We're going to probably want to take a center punch and punch it so we have our like a line for our drill to go through. So I'll get that now. So we're just going to take a little center punch right here. And we're going to want to get it centered, I mean, probably like right around there. For those of you who don't know what a circle saw is, this is pretty much it. It's got a nice drill bit and then this circle saw. So the reason we did that punch is so this drill doesn't walk and start making a mess. So I'm just going to, use that little indentation and just continue to go through this little body, like little frame. Might be hard to see, but now the circle saw blades are going to start cutting out a perfect circle so we can feed that wire through it. It's going to be a long time coming, but as you can see, it's starting to make that big indentation. And of course you're going to have some sparks because you're going metal on metal, but this battery is dying, so I'm going to get a different battery and we'll show you the finished result. So we got that hole cut out, not the best, but it will be covered. So now we're going to feed the harness through it. Luckily, Mopar labels it left turn and brake back input. So we'll feed that through here. That will go up to this one, and you could access this hole from underneath the car, so don't worry about that. We're just gonna feed those through. I already took the initiative to feed the trailer harness where the plug is, because that was a little bit bigger. Now we're gonna take this passenger side, feed that through as well. Just gonna make sure all the wires get through, and then we'll seal it with this nice rubber grommet, and we'll also probably put some silicone on it just so extra, like extra precaution. I doubt water will really get in there, but it is good just to seal it up. So we'll just feed that through and we'll get to the next step. So you just want to be careful because you did go through thin piece of metal that the edges are not going to be smooth, so they might be a little sharp. So I would suggest wearing gloves or just take precaution when coming around the edges because there's a lot of metal shavings that are sticking out. So this will pretty much tuck in there, and then we'll put some silicone as an extra precaution. But yeah, that's really it. Now we're going to start feeding the wire harness across. So if you want to come back, you can see all this wires down here now. So this is going to go up to that, so we'll take that off in a second. This one, just gonna untangle it, is gonna come through here. I'll have to figure out how to get to that. And then this one is gonna go up through there. So there's a way to feed it in to the back side, and then you have to pull it out this way. Might just take off the little bumper cover just to make it a little bit easier. So let's do that now. To make it easier, to pretty much feed the wiring under and everything, I'm going to take this plastic trim piece off. Pretty much up here it just pops in, but under, right next to the exhaust is some panel clips, so you just want to pry them out with like a panel popper here. Just pry them out so you can separate it from the car, and then we'll be able to feed the wire harness up under to the other side. So we got that little cover off. Besides the push clips, there was 4 8mm screws right here, which are on the back side. So now it gives us a lot more access and visibility to see what we're working with. So this will feed through there. We'll hook up the connector later. But we have all this excess wire, which we'll have to zip tie, which they actually give you plenty of zip ties. And then we'll feed this to the passenger side. Let's go to the driver's side. So this is going to go up. And of course, we're going to want to get it away from the exhaust because it will just melt these. I mean, they are heat shields, but they're still, you don't want to take the chance of burning wires and stuff. So this will pretty much run up the side here. And we'll take these off now. They look like they're T20s, maybe even T30s. We'll see in a second. So the T30, we're just going to take these 2 screws out right here. Going to disconnect these little harnesses, and we'll set this aside for now in a safe place. And we're going to have to feed that wire, these 2 little connectors, to come out from under here. So we'll probably take like, I don't know, maybe like a stick and tape it to this and pull the stick up because it's a lot easier to feed it up. But let's see if I can manage to do it without that, which will probably be a no. We got our wire fiberglass running kit. This is actually a really good product to have. I'll link it down below. Definitely invest in it if you have tight spaces and everything. But you're pretty much going to feed this exactly where the wire goes. And it's pretty much down here right now. So what I'm going to do is put this wire and tape it with some electrical tape to this. And then I'm going to pull this out. And in theory, if it doesn't get caught on anything, it's going to pull the wire harness up along with the fiberglass kit. So I'm going to tape that down under here. And then we'll see what it looks like. So I got the fiberglass wire kit taped to the wire harnesses down below. Now I just got to feed them up to the top, but it's going to be tight because it is on a hard angle of the bumper, but I think I got it. So now I pretty much fed the harness up through here. There's other ways to do this. You could take like clothes hangers and bend them and manipulate them to do this, but if you want to do it right, get these things. They're not that expensive. And I have 11 feet of it, so I can always just screw it if I want to take more out or put more in. Boom, boom. Definitely invest in it. It's very good, not only for this application, but in general. So we got this connector, which is going to go into the factory harness, like that. It's clipped in, and now this is going to go into the taillight assembly. I'm just going to connect to that bulb right there, and we'll put that back in. And also, if you haven't seen this, we're this tint right here to block out that eyesore of a white little inner piece. We actually tinted these, and we're doing the DRLs as well. We're gonna have a video coming very soon, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. If not, carry on. But we'll carry on with this install. Just put this thing back in, put these screws back in, and it's pretty much just a reverse procedure. It's that T30. And just screw them back in. So we got the that 1 wire harness that goes into where you hook up the towing. We'll just kind of feed that through there. If I get it in there. And we'll have to probably put some wire ties on this and that just to make it snug. And then we'll do the same exact thing which we did for the driver's side, is put those wire running kits and just feed it up to that side over there. I'm not going to put that on camera just to expedite the process of the video, but you'll see us on the next step. So we got the wire harness up to this taillight, and then of course we're going to plug the trailer connector into. So now what we're going to do is, Mopar luckily gives you probably about 30 zip ties, so we're just going to start zip tying them, the wire out of the way, get it nice and neat away from the exhaust, and then tuck it up under here. And then we're going to start making our way into the inside with this box, and then of course feeding the wire up to the engine bay. The next step is to put this little module, probably going to put it like right there. They give you a nice alcohol prep wipe just to clean up the surface so it sticks better. I took that ground, it's labeled ground, and I just put it on a stud that was sticking out, and I tightened it down, make sure there's no loose connection there. Just come and clean up the surface. Let it sit for a second. And we're going to place this bad guy right there. Put this into there, make sure it's long enough. Oh yeah, and then this goes to the cigarette lighter back here. So now that that module's all hooked up, the ground's hooked up, we're going to take this cable and plug it back into the DC voltage, the cigarette lighter right there. I hooked up the light in the back of this, but I'm just going to leave this hanging for now. Feed that wire that goes up to the engine bay through over here. Pretty much going to take these trim pieces off throughout the whole vehicle. We'll feed it under this one, and we'll go out into the driver's side and take that little trim piece off. And then this will go up under under the wheel well and go into the firewall that way. So let's do that now. So like I said, we're going to feed under here. We're just going to pop this trim piece off, take a panel popper or a flathead, but proper way to do it is with a panel popper. So set that aside. Now we can pull it back. So now we'll be able to feed it under here. We're probably going to use those wire feeders just to feed it through. It doesn't get stuck. These work. These little feeders, best thing ever. Or like I said, you could use a coat hanger if you have the old school ones, but you just pretty much tape the two together and then you'll just feed it under there. See if I need to pop it out or not. They say you don't have to, but it may even be easier just to feed it out. And I'll catch it on the other side. We just fed it through here. Now what I'm going to do is take the tape off this thing. And leave this here, and I guess I can pull it. So now that we got the wire fed through, we're going to pull it until it's entirely taut. And that's taut right there. We're going to continue running up there, but right now I'm going to button up the back and then we'll get to that step. So we're going to want to get this trim piece out so you could access where the hood latch is, because you're pretty much going to feed this wire through where the hood latch is, because the hood latch obviously feeds to the engine bay, the cable I should say. So we're going to take this thing down. There's 2 Phillips here on the side, and then there's one down here, a couple on the bottom which we'll have to get. So just unscrew this thing and that should loosen this up, and of course like I said, the bottom ones. Just going to pop this down. It goes under the column, so just keep that in mind. It goes all the way to this side. So this trim piece came off. We just had to disconnect some of the controls here. Now to release the hood latch, it's held in by some more Phillips heads, screws, this one and this one, and then that will drop down and we'll be able to feed the wire, figure out where to feed the wire through. Alright, so the point that you're going to come out of is right, pretty much follow this thing all the way down. There's like a rubber grommet right there, and you're going to pretty much come out. There's a nipple on top which is really hard to see on camera. We can't fit our camera in there from either inside the car or outside the car, but you're going to come through there, and in theory it's going to come out from like right here, and then you're going to connect the fused little battery supply to it, which will connect right in this area right here, and then you'll be able to put it on there. But I'm sorry we can't really show you. It's literally impossible to see. You got to get up under there. We tried and it just couldn't work. So just keep in mind that rubber grommet is where it's going to come out of, and then we'll connect them up here and connect it to the battery power supply, and that's it. It's a pretty easy job. So that grommet, like I said, you can't really see it, so I tried putting a stick through it so you could see where it comes out, but it comes out from right around there. So this is where that will connect to, this wire right here. So now we're going to feed it through, and that will be the last step before tightening up the battery and everything. So this is the wire that has the fuse and the supply for the battery, which actually you force in the car rather than force this connector out. You force it in, and then they give you a nice connector here, which you'll put on right there, and you'll plug these bad boys like that. Now the whole system is complete minus connecting the battery. So we'll tuck that under here, and that's the home stretch. This video is pretty much done. Now that everything's buttoned up, we have the hood latch all back together. Now we're going to put this plastic trim all back in, but we tucked the wire in there, so also we'll tuck it down in here and we'll make it all nice and neat. But that's pretty much it. We'll hook up the battery and then we'll show you the finished results. And this tutorial is super easy, just time consuming. So everything's done. We put that battery cable under the bolt that tightens on the battery. We'll tighten that down. And just so you know, if you never disconnected the battery on the car, you're probably going to lose your radio stations, and you might have the loss of power windows for a little while. There's a way to reset that, or just wait. And then this thing, they say that goes on there, but we're probably going to zip tie it out of the way, so I don't want to unscrew with the computer module. But yeah, that's pretty much a wrap for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed and found it helpful, so please help us out by subscribing, and make sure to stay tuned for more Jeep content. We also had this installed, a tutorial on that, the light bar, HIDs, tints coming soon. So until next time, peace.